Okay, so welcome everybody to Coffee with the Dean. My name is Josh Belize, and I am the director of the Alumni Office here at Millersville University. I am joined this afternoon with Dean Laura Willox from the College of Education and Human Services and Michael Skiles, Millersville University alum from 2013 and 2014. Do I have that right?
Correct.
And we're very excited to have you both here this afternoon. Dr. Willox, if you could just kind of get started and give us a quick overview of what you hope Coffee with the Dean to be, and then we'll jump into some questions for Michael.
Excellent. So yes, I'm Laura Willox. I'm the Dean of the College of Education and Human Services, and I wanted to host these coffees just to spark some discussion and opportunities for us to engage in topics that are important and happening in the real world, and to help our students see and understand how their degrees could potentially impact communities in our local area. And being a regional comprehensive institution, I think it's important that we keep those connections with the community and with what's happening in the community really well forefronted for students and faculty and other folks. So I'm excited to hear about Michael's experience and his background, and then the work that he's doing now. So
Perfect. Thank you. And our session today we're calling from service to social service, trauma-informed care for veterans and beyond. So, Michael, as we kind of talk about the title of our session for today, maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your journey at Millersville, how you ended up here, and then where you are today and how you got to the spot where you are today.
Sure. So I graduated high school and 9/11 happened my senior year. I ended up joining the military right out of high school. I was in the Marine Corps from 2002 to 2006. I had a lot of difficulty transitioning, included a lot of alcohol and drug use, and working jobs that weren't meaningful to me. Um, I just celebrated 10 years sober in October.
congratulations.
Thank you. And during that time, I ended up getting my degree in social work. I got an undergrad in social work and a master's in social work with the intent to go work with veterans. And that's where I am now. I work at the Wilmington VA in their substance use department. And substance use it's a tricky field. And then add the veteran aspect to it, and then add most of our vets have co-occurring disorders, and co-occurring mental health and substance use. So it's working within that realm to try and help at the micro level, I guess, is more where I am now because I provide direct patient care. I don't have a lot of influence in policy or anything like that. But we do what we can in terms of like working with individuals and helping them, regain their lives essentially. Because substance use and mental health can really impact somebody, and that's why we have homeless vets. And you hear this statistic of 22 veterans committing suicide a day. That's a big thing within the VA is suicide prevention. And that's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago when I first started using the VA, it was a lot different. It took a month and a half, 2 months to get appointments. You weren't able to get in, the staffing was always an issue. Things like that have really increased and gotten better over the years. But it's right now it's reaching my goals and kind of trying to find new ones now, essentially, because my goal was always to work with vets, and that's where I am. I got my clinical license in that time too, because I was able to pass the LSW exam while I was in school, and Worked a while at case management jobs and, got some experience. That's something that, I didn't realize that I needed was experience. So I had a master's degree looking for master's level pay, but I didn't have master's level experience.
Did you do the
Um,
straight through bachelor's to master's program?
I started my master's program 2 days after graduation. So
Okay.
yeah, like I actually got my degree. I did winter classes. I did, I was a non-traditional student, so I did things fast. I did my whole education in 4.5 years. So
Excellent. So I'm curious though, how you got from getting out of the military, having the, personal issues going on. How did you come to social work as your career path?
oh man, I mean, I think a lot of us who have e- experienced trauma and have substance use histories want to use that history to help people. I think that, when you go into the field, I think that's something that people often say, like they want somebody who's been through it, even though that doesn't always mean anything. We could provide therapeutic care if we haven't had trauma or if we haven't experienced a substance use problem. I the way that I like got through it was family, my family, using my support and recognizing what my support needed to be. Because like when you discharge, that's when you discharge from the military, you're essentially leaving everything that you know for the past 4 years.
Right.
And I personally think that's one of the reasons why suicide rates are so high, because we essentially leave everything we know, and a lot of us join the military because we were in bad situations, we didn't do well in high school, and you think about the type of people who typically join the military. So it's for me, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and it was 9/11 happened. It's my dad was in the Marine Corps, so it kind of lined up that way. And I just have different resources when I got out than maybe the typical person might. And when we experience mental health and substance use and don't know where to go, that can become problematic. I mean, because if you look at some of the data, most of the people who actually commit suicide are under the influence.
I know you had said you did your program really quickly, and before we started recording, we were talking about the time that you spent in Macumsey Hall back in the day. I'm curious to know during your time here, even though it was brief, were there any faculty that stood out to you and that served as a mentor or a role model during your time to help make it through some of these transitions you were facing?
Um, so I mean, I had some time between my education and my military service. So like I had 3 or 4 years to kind of figure some stuff out and like figure out what I needed to do to get where I needed to be. And granted, I still had a lot of substance use stuff while I was going through school. I mean, that was one of the justifications I used for continuing, to be quite honest. I mean, I did well in school. School was writing papers that and giving presentations and doing what I following through with expectations. I mean, that was easy for me. So, um, getting back to your question, I mean, there were, of course, I had Dr. Rice and Dr. Johnson. I remember fondly. Dr. Johnson's no longer with us. um, he was always one that I kind of looked up to because we had a similar personal direct style. Right, I'm very direct and open, and I think that's part of what helps us relate to the people that we work with too, right? Because you know they people that we work with like to know that um what our capabilities are too, right? Because like it's not always leaning back on that experience thing, man, the experience really gives us what we need to thrive in the field, you know. So if there's anything that I could leave anybody with, is get the experience that you need to move up and move forward. Because, you know, even if it means taking a job that you don't necessarily want to take, or going to do something that you don't think is necessarily right. Because, you know, I worked with children a lot too in my internships, uh and that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, all the people, Dr. Foles, Dr. Frank, you know, who am I forgetting? Dr. Bethel, love Dr. Bethel. She was new when I started, or when I
They're all still
finished.
here too, except for Dr. Johnson. So
Yeah, DJ. Who am I forgetting? I'm
I
probably
don't know if
forgetting
Dr.
somebody.
Gervin,
Oh, Dr. Gervin was here. Yes, yeah. I didn't have a lot of classes with her, so
yeah, I don't know
a
when
lot of
everyone
people.
got here. So I've only been here 3 years now, so I'm still learning a lot of the faculty and everyone, but many of
I
them have
mean,
been
but
here for a while.
the faculty is. I mean, that's what helped me get through this too. You know, I mean, being able to ask questions and being open with what I needed to get through my education. Because being a non-traditional student, you know, it's a little different not being on campus. You don't have the interactions with other students like you do, like it appears people do in going to school right from high school, you know.
Right. Why did you pick Millersville?
um well, I transferred from Hack. Actually, I did my first 2 years at Hack, and like got, you know, did their dual enrollment program. You know, that seemed like the best cost effective means for me to get where I needed to go. And the dual enrollment program, obviously, that really helped me get all the credits I needed to get transferred and keep going.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that you talked about was getting the experience. You know, you might have the degree, but having the experience is really helpful too. So when it comes to for a new student or someone like me who's not necessarily in the field, how would you describe trauma-informed care to somebody who's not especially familiar with it? What does it mean to you?
I think the biggest thing is not re-traumatizing. You know, that's you know, we don't want to re-traumatize our clients. And you know, ways that we do that, like we don't keep news programs on in the lobbies. That's, you know, people talk about news. That's a big thing with vets, the news and the current events. So like not keeping the TV on in the lobbies with those programs. And educating staff, right? We're working with our schedulers, with everybody, to kind of say, hey, we want to work with people in this manner. This is how we work with people to not re-traumatize. We make sure it's client-centered treatment. You know, we're not working with somebody in their trauma issues if they don't want to work with their trauma issues, right? I mean, it has to be client-centered, but I mean that goes to like motivation and motivational interviewing, right? We use that as a means to help people through the process of change. um and you know, it's all really has to be trauma informed, because I said it goes, like I said earlier, it goes, most of the vets that we work with have co-occurring disorders, right? They've been through combat, they have childhood trauma, they have um experience with substance use, they, you know, all the things that um come along with trauma, right? You know, the fight or flight response, and working within the realm of what the client's needs are, and trying to, in groups, right? If somebody has issues in a group, we say, hey, maybe we should talk about this individually. So we make sure that we're working within the realm of our clients and the clients that we're working with too, uh, to make sure that we're not re-traumatizing, because again, that when we trigger that fight or flight response, it's not always easy to rein it back in.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and I see that you started the position you have at a pretty tricky time.
Yeah, I started the day COVID started.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I see that you started March 15th, 2020, so that had to be an interesting transition to
It
that
was,
position. Yeah, you gonna tell us
you
a
know,
little bit about that?
I mean, that was really learning to move from like working uh face to face to over, using these platforms and use it. I mean, it was I remember being back then and saying, man, it's really, really challenging to do an assessment over the telephone. Because we look at body language, we look at facial expressions, we use all that stuff in our assessment. So it was challenging. We use drug tests for like accountability reasons and stuff like that, because people lie. So there's a lot of means that we had to like work to get through in that period that were different, but I think we did a good job. And in that transition, I mean, it's all about transitions too, right? I mean, because we transition from school to school or school to work and military to school, and figuring out that next step can be a challenge for anybody. Add mental health to it,
Yeah,
it's so, getting back to like the question, and not re-traumatizing again, it's working within like, hey, the person's needs.
yeah. So you've been there 5.5 years. So like, what are you thinking are your next? Heard you say that you're always thinking forward. So what are you thinking about in terms of?
So I was talking to Josh a little bit earlier. I had a motorcycle accident on 10/22/23, and so that was almost 2 years ago. My wife was on the back, and she's now paralyzed from the breast down. I had to learn to walk again. So like the year before last was quite a challenge, because we had a 6-month-old at the time as well. He's now 2.5.
Oh, wow.
So we've moved from like learning to use a lot of resources to being independent in the last couple of years. So I tend to be forward thinking in my goal setting, but I am pretty intent with what my life has in store for me right now. So I don't really, and I love my job. I love what I do. Um, I was able to go back to work, and I'm a federal employee too, so that's been quite the challenge over the last since January as well.
Right.
So thinking back to that, I've gotten my LCSW in the last 5 years while I've been
Right.
there. I did my supervision while I was there. My goals through work are usually to try and do evidence-based practice trainings. So the VA offers these extensive trainings, which they'll do a week of training and then 6 months of follow-up for like cognitive behavioral therapy for
Oh,
depression, or CBT for substance use disorders. So, or motivational interviewing, which I think is a little bit different than the trainings we often see in the general public, where it's just 3 days, here's your certificate,
right.
go enjoy practicing. Because I've done some like that too. So like annually, I try and do something to add to my practice, to add to my skill set. I've done the motivational interviewing one. I've done the cognitive behavioral for SUD. I've taken something called accelerated resolution therapy. That's a trauma-based therapy using eye movements. So I do various different things to add to my clinical practice. as goals. Um, and then as far as family goes, just getting through the next day is getting kind of hard enough as it is. But
Yeah,
you know,
toddlers
yeah,
are no
toddlers,
joke.
no, they are not.
Yeah.
And he's learning to talk and all that stuff. So,
This is the
but
best age. 2-year-olds get the bad rap, I
I
think.
enjoy it. I mean, it
I
can
think
be
they're great.
frustrating at times, but
No, they are frustrated, but they want to do more than they can. So it's just a challenge. But I think probably as a social worker, you understand that too, that there are people who want to do more than they can. And that's all a 2-year-old is too, is somebody who's trying to go beyond their capabilities and frustrated that they can't. So,
correct. I mean, that's really that is what social work is essentially, right?
right. And it's that what I hear you saying too is that you're continually learning and you plan to continually learn. And just to put a shameless plug in too, we do have a DSW program that's basically fully online to build on those leadership skills. So something to consider in the future, probably post toddlerdom, but it's something to
Potential.
consider.
I've thought about it. I've actually thought about it, but whether Millersville and doing my undergrad and my master's and my doctorate there were a good idea. I have thought about that to be quite
Yeah.
honest, but I'm also education. As far it's hard. I mean, it's hard to get back into that.
Well, and you did an exhausting feat by going straight through in that summer, winter. Like you probably need to recover even longer from that. Like getting a master's and a bachelor's in that 4.5 year time span is kind of um, not your typical pathway. So
Right. And well, I mean, that's where like when you go say what like I remember DJ saying people with master's degrees want master's level experience.
right,
And like that, I used that to kind of like modify my thinking when I couldn't get because like I wanted to get it. I did my internship at the VA in Lebanon, and I figured, oh, I have a degree with a license. There's going to be no problem for me to get into the VA right away. That wasn't the case, so I had to readjust what like I was thinking about what my goals were to kind of get where I am too, because I worked as a case manager for a couple of years doing um uh stuff I didn't want to do. And that's that helped, but that experience is what got me where I am and helped me get a clinical license because you have to work in it to know how to do it. Coming out of school, we know a lot, but we don't know a lot.
exactly. Well, you just have to marry the practice with the education, and so I think that's a key piece hearing you say that because we are attracting a lot of students in our bachelor's. We offer an accelerated master's program where they can take some of their master's level courses while they're still completing their bachelor's degree. But I think it might be good for them to listen to this to just hear that if just because they have that MSW credential doesn't mean they're going to start in a position that is that master's level. That and then what I'm hearing you say too is that by going back a little, you actually have built better building blocks for the job that you have now.
Absolutely. That's very, very, very true. I mean, and I think that's important for us all to understand and being able to adjust our expectations as we go, because um, that's what's going to help us thrive is adjusting our expectations, realistic and being realistic.
Yeah, I think that's the goal of life is managing expectations.
It is, we don't always view it like that, but
No, I have someone I know often says that expectations make us suffer. So,
I mean, they do. I mean, because we're ultimately we're powerless over what other people do,
right, right,
and life and expectations are often put on other people.
right. No. Well, thank you so much for talking and having this conversation with us. I think it's good to hear like your journey towards your career and where you are it'll be fun to check in with you in a couple of years too to see how you've progressed to the preschool years, if anything else.
Right. Well, we take he goes 1 day a week now, so he's
Okay.
starting now. So and you know, as time progresses, I'm sure like I'll have more goals to make sure to continue improving, because like that's what really life is about, is continuing to improve upon your situation and being, you know, I think all of us really just want to be happy. And
Yeah.
you know,
Well, it
isn't
sounds
that
like
the
it was amazing that you both survived. You know, a lot of people don't survive motorcycle accidents. Um,
right? Yeah, it's not worth it. Don't get on a motorcycle.
oh no, I have a colleague who she actually just passed away 2 weeks ago, but she had a motorcycle accident and was a quadriplegic. And she was driving 25 miles an hour turning into her neighborhood and she just lost control and the bike was too big for her um and she snapped her vertebrae and that was it. So that that has left me pondering any motorcycle futures, but
I was asking rehab, I was asking about it, and they said they see more spinal cord injuries with motorcycle accidents, ski accidents, and diving accidents.
okay.
So
Yeah.
be mindful of those, I guess, if you don't want to have a spinal cord injury.
Yes. So, well, thank you again for taking the time out to talk.
Welcome. Did you
Yeah.
have any other questions?
Josh, did you?
If I could just throw one out there, I'm
Yeah,
kind of
please.
curious, Michael, is there any advice that you would give to a social work student today who maybe was in similar shoes that you would have been in when you started your program? Like what advice would you give to a student today who is studying social work and is thinking about working in the trauma-informed care field?
So I think one of the things that I really did is took the time to invest in the program that I was in and help improve it as we go, because we're all going to be in programs that need improvements and need changes. And so being in a situation where I was able to have a leadership role essentially, and um, you know, because the VA is the largest hire of social workers in the country, if you didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know
But
that.
they hire social workers because we have experience in doing this type of work and working within the realm of trauma informed care. So any advice that I would have is to get involved with the program that you are in and help come up with ideas. Don't be scared to share your voice, because your voice matters. You know, even if you don't think it's a good idea, you know, screw it. It's say it anyways. You know, sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. And you know, um, I've learned not to be scared to open up and do these type of events. You know, some people say I don't say no to anything like this because I feel like it can help like increase that awareness that hey, you know, a lot of us do work within environments that we try and maintain um uh something that we're trying not to re-traumatize people. You know, we're trying not to have um things around that are going to re-traumatize, you know. So getting involved within that program allows us to make changes from the lower levels, and making changes from the lower levels I think is, you know, where that's the groundwork. I mean, that's the where you really start things. So you know, if we want to make policy changes on a larger level, I think it really starts from a lower level and informing the people who make policy.
Well, as Dr. Willox said, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon, and thank you for your compassion, your dedication to the field, and for making us proud of you here at Millersville. And for anybody who's listening, this is a great opportunity to really practice that compassion in your everyday. And we hope that you'll join us with our next Coffee with the Dean conversation. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.